So, Neale, that actually brings me to the beginning of Book 2. You asked God why there were long breaks between chapters. There was 5 months of no communication at one point, and you received a message that God said that you hadn't been meditating or praying in that time. So when you started with Book 1, and before you heard that voice in the room, had you been meditating and praying, or how did it get to that point?
No. My meditation at that point was desperation, sheer desperation. As I mentioned, I had lost everything. Mm-hmm. I had lost everything, and I was then calling out in my mind, as the desperately lost often do. God, if you're there, now would be a really good time to show up, because I'm at the end of my rope here. And when I'm lecturing in front of my audiences, I often say to them in kind of a kidding way, but I mean it. I often say to my audiences, there I was sitting on my couch saying, if you don't give me an answer right now, I'm out of here. And God was sore afraid. That's my joke line. and said, ran around telling the angels, we got to do something. Neale is threatening to leave. So, and it usually gets a pretty big laugh, but then I move forward with my lecture, and I tell them it was at that point, really, from a place of anger / desperation / pleading and begging, the kind of pleading, begging anger that we feel when we are totally desperate. And it was then that I opened myself to the experience that was all around me, that was already happening. I want to make that real clear. It's real important for me to tell anyone who's listening to this right now that God is always there, always around us, in us, as us, through us, and in our very environment, in our very breath that we breathe. God is ever present with us all the time. It's not a question of God decides to show up one day because, well, okay, he's been praying long enough, let's have some pity. Okay, God, go to 2436 Weimer Street and go say hello to Neale. It isn't like that. It isn't that God is not there until he finally decides to be there. God is there always in the life of every single human being, every minute of every day. It's not a question of when God shows up. It's a question of when we realize, when we open ourselves to the experience of God's ever-present reality.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. It's time already for another break, Neale. So you're listening to Synchronicity, talk radio for your mind, body, and soul. I'm your host, Marie Benard, and we are speaking with Neale Donald Walsch, the author of the Conversations with God series, and he has a new book out, When Everything Changes, Change Everything. If you want to get on the air and talk to Neale, ask him a question, please give me a call right now at 604-822-2487. That's 604-822-2487. Give me a call right now, and during the break, I'll get you set up to talk with Neale. Hi, welcome back to the show. This is Synchronicity, talk radio for your mind, body, and soul. And we do have a caller on the line, so welcome back, Neale. And hello, who are we speaking with?
You're speaking with Alex. Good morning, Neale. Good morning.
Good morning.
If you don't mind, Neale, you were briefly talking about signs, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that listening to your program today is a sign for myself. To give you just a little bit of context of where we're from, both my spouse and I are both very successful. We do very well, and we really aren't in any sort of level of desperation, except maybe for that of seeking faith. Would and how do I or we attempt to reach God or speak with God if we're not in that sort of category of the meek or of the desperate?
Well, it's a wonderful question, and I am trying just as hard as I can to make it clear with every word I speak that it's not necessary to be in any particular situation, desperate or not, in order to experience the realization of God in your life. Desperation isn't the required club card to get in, membership card to get into the God Club.
It seems to be a catalyst to at least being receptive to hearing God.
Well, I think it is for. That's fair. That's fair. I think it is for some people who are just stubborn as hell. I mean, you could hit me over the head with a 2x4, and I wasn't going to go there. But so I had to be brought to my knees. But I don't think it's accurate to say that everyone has to be brought to their knees. Let me tell you what I think is the membership card of the God Club. Okay. Desire. Not desperation, but a different D word. Desire. If we have a sincere, which I did not have until I was desperate. So sometimes people need desperation to acquire desire. Mm-hmm. But there's a poem there somewhere. Acquire desire. In any event, sometimes people need desperation to acquire desire. On the other hand, if we have desire in the absence of desperation, then we shortcut our way right straight to the God Club. So I want to say to you that if you have a real desire to, and you seem to have this line of communication with that which is divine, with the place of divine wisdom within all of us, then simply stick with that desire and then see if there are some things that you can do in your everyday life. By the way, there's a wonderful series of chapters in my new book. Not that I'm trying to sell one more copy, but truly in the new book, When Everything Changes, Change Everything, there's about 3 chapters in the back of the book that answer the question, how can we connect with the divine wisdom within us, with the source of divinity in the universe? If we aren't desperate, if we aren't facing some kind of an emotional crisis, what about, just everyday life? And there are 2 or 3 chapters at the end of that book that talk directly to that. Briefly, here on the phone, I'll tell you that the tools of meditation, prayer, regular, ordinary prayer, the way we've all learned about and how to do it, most of us have,
yes.
And other forms, and many different forms of meditation, not just what I call sitting meditation, but walking meditation, doing meditation, and even what I call stopping meditation, all of which are described in the back of that wonderful new book. So there are a lot of ways for us to, and those aren't the only ways, by the way. There are other ways as well. Journaling can be a wonderful way if you could just let yourself get out of the way, get your mind out of there, and just let yourself journal from a place of open-mindedness and connection with God. I do a process when I do my evening programs. We're doing one in Baltimore here in a couple of days now, next week, I think, or the week after. And we do a free evening where we invite people to have their own conversation with God. And I swear, what is your name again, sir?
My name is Alex.
Alex.
Yes.
I swear to heaven, you may not believe this, but we sit there in front of 200 or 300 people. We give them all a pad and a paper. A pad and a pencil or a pen, and we place them into the right state of mind. Play a little soft music and so forth. Do a little meditation, and then we invite them to have a conversation with God in writing, exactly the way I do. You know that 85% of the audience reports after the end of the first 20 minutes they've had exactly that experience. They just never did it that way before, never tried it that way before. But they open their mind. I invite them to ask a question. Just ask any question that's important to you. Not a frivolous question like who's going to win the Kentucky Derby or what's the next lottery number, but something important to your soul that you're really yearning to get some clarity on. And they write that question down, and then they go ahead and bring themselves the answer. And I'm telling you, the room lights up as everyone, 85% of the people raise their hand. Wow, that's the clearest answer. I've never had this kind of clarity before on that issue. So I want to tell you that the process is replicable. That is, you can duplicate it in a room full of people, and I've done it more than once. And I do it every time I go out and give a talk. That almost sounds therapeutical
as well, and I'm going to accept this as a sign, Neale, of just speaking to you ever so briefly. We feel, and at least I feel, that we've been either clouded or we've been hypnotized by all of the material wealth and tangibles that we have now. So I'm going to accept this as a sign. I'm going to do a lot of research on what it is you do and how you speak. So I thank you very much for your time, and I hope that I will have a conversation sometime soon. At least my family will, or at least my son will. I would really like that.
That's great,
so
Alex.
Thank you so much.
And pick up the book When Everything Changes, Change Everything. And if you don't do anything else, read the last 3 chapters. You'll find a lot of information there.
I'll duck out of my office right now, and I'll go to the chapters, and I'll pick it up.
If it's not there, order it from Amazon.com. The book has just come out.